What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with Nintendo revealing their next generation system in this fiscal year, we're not too far away from it coming out, so naturally, they're getting all kinds of questions around how they are going to approach that next system, especially when it comes to resellers and scalpers taking advantage of the release for an incredibly popular system. Well, Nintendo did answer this and gave at least some of their plans as to how they're going to navigate that scenario, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sega and their big push for their older intellectual properties to be revived with Crazy Taxi getting some new info. And then we have Capcom, who did have an event yesterday where they dove into more details for Dead Rising, as well as plans for the future of Resident Evil. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with Nintendo and, well, their natural habitat, it seems, that being the courtroom, as it looks like Nintendo is not too happy with the MIG switch. Go figure. But beyond that, even sort of the piracy that seems to surround that, as well as just the scene for hacked switches in general online, and so much so that they are now taking legal action for some avenues. For example, we can see this is posted up. This is over on Torrent Freak, who says Nintendo has filed 2 lawsuits at a Washington federal court targeting individuals who allegedly facilitated Nintendo Switch piracy. The first lawsuit accuses modded hardware of violating the DMCA by selling mod chips and MIG devices, as well as shipping modded consoles with pirated games. That one in particular is interesting because that's where myself and RGT got the MIG switch from, even though it seemed like they just weren't going to ship them out. They randomly showed up at our doors one day. And then the second complaint accuses Archbox, a moderator of Reddit Switch Pirates on Reddit, of facilitating piracy and operating various pirate shops. Well, if you have, say, modded consoles with pirated games on them and you're shipping them out, yeah, it's going to be pretty open and shut for Nintendo. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Nintendo maybe ordered one of those systems, got it in, and that's all the proof they need there. The other one, I mean, if it's a moderator of Switch Pirates, that one kind of tells on itself. So, in this instance, to me, it seems pretty straightforward for Nintendo, and most of the time, they don't move on these sorts of lawsuits unless they have overwhelming evidence and they're able to win handedly, like what we saw previously with things like Yuzu. So that's just sort of where they are currently, but something tells me we're going to get the results for these cases pretty quickly. Also, we have some really cool retro news, as it does appear that Minecraft is being ported backwards to older systems. For example, we can see this is posted up. This is over on Time Extension, who got these tweets together from a flock of meese who is actually porting Minecraft to the Dreamcast and the GameCube. Now, they had announced this earlier in the year, but they have continued to work on this. In fact, the other day, they posted video of it running just on the GameCube here, and they say it went from 4 to 10 chunks, matching the Minecraft SMP render distance with near zero lag. I mean, it's just impressive in general to be able to port a game like Minecraft to the GameCube and also obviously to the Dreamcast, and that is something that I'd be very interested in at least trying out. I'm not a big Minecraft person, but I do like these sorts of projects that take more current games and trying to get them, downgrade them in some way, demake them onto the older system so that they're able to at least run. So yeah, I'll load it up on my GameCube, I'll load it up on my Dreamcast if this is something that ends up releasing down the road. Oh, and we have Concord, of course, coming up here in the next month or two, and while many people seem kind of off-put just by the game itself, they just don't really seem interested in it, there's another aspect of this, and yes, it has to do with the PlayStation Network sign-in requirements, which it does need a PSN account, even if you're on PC, to play the game. And we got some more clarification on that. This is over on Eurogamer with some of the developers. They say that allows us to have crossplay, that cross-progression. That's what's an important piece of it. The goal is for players to come together, and so for us to have PC players and PlayStation 5 players together, for that crossplay and cross-progression to work, that's a layer that needs to be there just on a technical level. So the goal is we want to get players together to have fun and play together. That is part of that experience. So yes, there you go. If you're really excited for Concord, but you're not excited for PSN, well, you're going to have to figure it out one way or the other and get an account and sign in. That's just what Sony wants people to do, but Something tells me Concord isn't exactly the game that's going to all of a sudden have a bunch of PlayStation Network accounts made overnight because people desperately want to play it. Hey, unless the beta does really, really well and gets people on board, something tells me that people don't really mind as much that PSN's required because they weren't really going to play it in the first place. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their Switch 2 system that they have already said, that being Mr. Furukawa, that they would be unveiling it this fiscal year. That means they have until March 30th, 2025 to at least run some sort of trailer to show exactly what their plans are for their successor to the wildly successful Nintendo Switch. Now, of course, on the way there are going to be a lot of questions from investors, and we did talk about the Q&A, but Nintendo released the entire write-up for that transcription, and IGN did go through and translate pretty much all of it, but there was one part in particular that people are curious about because it did bring up the Switch 2 and Nintendo's plans specifically for the launch of this console, which, as we've seen very recently with the PS5 and the Xbox Series, it wasn't easy to get one at launch either way, and it took a while until you could just comfortably order them online and not have to pay double or even triple the amount on places like eBay just to get one from a reseller. Well, the Switch itself sort of went through that when it came out, right? But it wasn't nearly as bad as when the pandemic hit and there was a serious shortage when it comes to semiconductors. Well, we can see this posted up over on IGN again, who had the translation from that transcription with the Q&A. This from Furukawa says, as a countermeasure against resale, we believe that the most important thing is to produce a sufficient number to meet customer demand, and this idea has not changed since last year. In addition to this, we are considering whether there are any other measures that can be taken to the extent allowed by laws and regulation, taking into account the circumstances of each region. Although we were unable to produce sufficient quantities of Nintendo Switch hardware last year and the year before due to a shortage of semiconductor components, this situation has now been resolved. At this time, we do not believe that the shortage of components will have a significant impact on the production of the successor model. Now, this is obviously important since even if Nintendo wanted to make a ton of systems, if they are bottlenecked by a semiconductor shortage, it wouldn't matter. They're just able to get what they can and then put it out there. And that's something they ran into, which was a weird situation. Years and years into the life of a console, all of a sudden, there's a shortage of essentially parts for it, and now there's a shortage of the system itself. And yeah, the Switch went through this weird thing where halfway through its life, all of a sudden it was being resold and scalped all over again for it's like 150% or so of its typical price, right? So it was still fairly high. It wasn't 300% or something, but still, it was up there. In this case, though, when the Switch first released back in March 2017, in that first month, we know that they shipped 2.74 million systems. We know this because since that fell into the final month of that fiscal year, they gave us essentially what they launched with just about for that month in the following fiscal report for that entire previous year. So in this instance, knowing what they know now with the current Switch, and how popular it is, I do wonder if they're looking at that thinking, can we go with double that amount to launch with as a way to kind of balance out resellers and scalpers who may try to swoop in, buy up a ton of these things and sell it for double or triple the amount, because Nintendo will surely be looking for an easy transition from the current Switch to the new systems, we'll say Switch 2 for now, and if you have resellers picking up the stock that maybe is $400 and trying to resell it for $800, yeah, that will make it more difficult and people will kind of hang back a bit and just hold on to their current Switch. It's funny because it does sound very, very basic. Just make a lot of systems, flood the market, and resellers won't have a shot at trying to double up or triple up the price point due to the scarcity, but there's still a lot of logistics that go into it and a lot of money that goes into it. Fortunately for Nintendo, well, they definitely have the money to make that happen. The question is, will they be able to come together with Nintendo come together with Nvidia and sort of make all the logistics side of it work out? I think they can. I'm just curious how much further they push, say, than the 2.74 million systems they shipped in March 2017. I guess the The positive thing here is it doesn't seem like they're going to launch in a holiday season, which did help out with the first Switch. And in this case, I think they're going to go that route for the Switch 2, even if it's not in March or something. If they put it out in the summertime, still many, many months before the holiday season kicks in, and you have holiday shoppers and early adopters for the system battling it out for the console in that November, December holiday period. So we'll see as we get closer to its eventual reveal, because once that thing gets shown, Nintendo makes the big announcement, and we even see some games playing on it, the hype level is definitely going to go through the roof, and the demand for it is going to be something impressive, I think, coming off of what's been really their most successful system ever. Next up, let's talk about Sega and Crazy Taxi, which I was very excited when they did that big sizzle reel of all the different games that they were going to at least try to revive in some way. But certainly Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi caught my eye. I was very curious more so as to how they were going to revive Crazy Taxi and sort of what direction they would go with it. We sort of heard they would be looking maybe as like a live service type thing, something with multiplayer involved. And now we have more information around that, which we can see this was posted up. This is over on Automaton Media, who says that there was a video interview with the game's development team that revealed further details. The recruitment page for the Crazy Taxi, or new Crazy Taxi, offers a number of positions ranging from game designer to level designer, effects designer, character modeler, concept artist, more. The posting also reveals that Sega is aiming for a large-scale global hit with the game, which will be open world, massive multiplayer, and run in Unreal Engine. Okay, well, Unreal Engine, that makes sense. That'll help to speed up development, of course, but open world, massively multiplayer. I saw some pushback here as soon as these details came out, because people went, oh, it's not going to be like that arcade sort of game that we had on the Dreamcast. Well, if they are indeed pushing for this to be a $70 game, like they want this to be a big AAA title, they do have to at least expand beyond what they had initially with the Dreamcast, or even the follow-up for Crazy Taxi where they had on like the PS2 and the GameCube and stuff. They have to definitely think more modernized in the sense that these consoles are just capable of much more than they used to be, and with the online infrastructure, there are a lot of possibilities and potential for something like Crazy Taxi. See, when I heard this, I immediately thought of something like Forza Horizon, where you are driving out in the world. It is interconnected for online play to where you will see someone just show up in your world driving around, and you can race around with them, even if it's like they're like kind of their ghost data that's with the car, and the computer sort of controls based on their behavior. That would also be kind of interesting just to have at times appear in your world as you're racing around, trying to get somebody from one side of the city to the next and collect the most money. Of course, this does open up the possibility of all kinds of microtransactions and ways for them to get money from you beyond that initial spend. And does that mean that the game itself could be structured completely around that? It's definitely possible, but I actually think this could be a good direction for Crazy Taxi, especially if they're able to have it catch on. My only thing is Crazy Taxi a big enough intellectual property for, especially the generation now that's really playing games a lot? Will they recognize Crazy Taxi? Because I still feel like that's something that my generation, anyone who remembers just the Dreamcast in general being sold in stores, that'll probably be something more interesting to them, unless Sega can, well, effectively reintroduce Crazy Taxi to a newer audience with the online play. It's not a strong intellectual property for Sega necessarily just in gaming, but I think it has a lot of potential with online play, so we'll see what happens, and I think we're still a few years away from this one, thinking maybe 2026, but we'll see. They could always surprise us. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Capcom's event yesterday, just called Capcom Next, as they did dive into details around one title that I'm very excited about, that being Dead Rising, as well as the future of Resident Evil, even dropping some little bits of information in there that caught some people off guard, as it does look like, yes, the next Resident Evil is indeed in development. Shocking, I know, but let's start at the top here, as they were trying to push one game in particular because it's out here in a couple of weeks. That being Kinitsu Gami Path of the Goddess. That's July 19th, and it is an action strategy game where they've kind of combined those two genres. They showed it off in gameplay in this event. And I feel like we have seen this game a couple of times now. It is immediately going into Game Pass, so there is that. If you already have the service, maybe you'll just download it and try it out. But they did go into some of the details here where you build up a village to prepare for night, and you fight off enemies at that time. You can then come back during the daytime, upgrade your villagers and the town itself. And they showed off a Kami as like a crossover for these different costumes, weapons, music. It looks like they're gonna have like sort of a community pool system where as just everyone in general playing the game are able to complete tasks and sort of pool different points. You'll get more rewards for it. And there is a demo that is out right now. So even if you're not with Game Pass, you can download the demo, try it out, see what you think. They said there's no time limit. There's no number of retries or continues or play time. You can just play it as much as you want and see what you think. This game just hasn't really done it for me at all. So I see it, obviously. It's out here in a few weeks and it's in Game Pass. Maybe I'll download it, but I'm just not really as excited, I guess, for this one as opposed to the next game, that being Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. It is built in RE Engine, and I'm telling you, this looks like a remake. They actually touched on that a bit, and they said, look, yes, it's being remade technically, but we are still keeping the core experience, that core gameplay that isn't necessarily serious. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's very much over-the-top, comical in nature at times, and they showed a lot of that off, but I don't know, the visual upgrade for this. They said 4K 60 FPS. There's real-time lighting for time of day, whether it's night or obviously during midday, you'll have the lighting sort of reflect that. And it does change the mood and the visuals for each area. It's just visually speaking, it is a significant upgrade from that Xbox 360 version I played what feels like, 18 years ago or something. Now, there is one unfortunate aspect to this, and that is they're having a split release. That being digital is coming up here pretty quick. That's September 19th, so we're not very far off from that one. The physical version, though, is coming in November. Unfortunate stuff because, yes, they're going to get people probably like me to double dip on this game. It is coming out on the PS5, the Xbox Series, and on PC through Steam. And they also went into some other things they're doing when it comes to quality of life, like you're able to move while aiming. There is an autosave feature. There's improved NPCs, specifically the behavior of them. Like if you're trying to rescue people, you have to rely on them to sort of navigate their own path alongside of you. And most times they were kind of dumb back in the day, so it seems like they've at least addressed that one here. And again, looking at this game, it is definitely a major step up from what we had 18 years ago, with that core experience still intact. They did throw a bit of a swerve in here because as they were talking about Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, the person on screen here pulled out their phone, made it be a big deal, and they told us that Resident Evil 7 is out now on iPhone, iPad, and Mac. So yeah, this tripped some people up. People weren't exactly excited to hear about that one, but they went back, talked a bit more about Dead Rising, and they came back to close things out, talked about Resident Evil and sort of what they did when they went to Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, and they went to this first-person mode, and people weren't exactly thrilled about the idea of that since it had been third person for so long with Resident Evil. And they explained why that was. They say, hey, if we do first person, it makes it, we think, scarier. And yes, to a certain extent it does, because you are closer to the action, as opposed to if you see your character in front of you third person style, you feel almost removed a bit from the whole thing. It's not as personal. But they did say that there is a substantial new entry on the way, almost like they had this aha moment as to what they should do following up what we've had with 7 and Village, but no further details are being shared at this time. So, bit of a cliffhanger there for Resident Evil fans, but good to hear, yes, there is a new Resident Evil game in development. Again, shocking, I know, but to me, the star of the show here, absolutely Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I will absolutely be picking that one up in September digitally, and probably swinging back around to get it physically. I'm annoyed by some of these digital and then physical releases, but I guess it's in their mind to say, hey, we can either release it in September and November or just all at once in November. And let's face it, we're all impatient gamers. We'd rather have it sooner than later. So yeah, I guess I'll be buying it twice, digitally and then physically. I already bought it a couple of times anyway, since they have ported that game many times now already. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, have you been to a midnight release for a new game system launch? Look at this, 69%, good job everyone, said no. 31% said yeah. Wow, okay, so, okay, nearly 70% of people have not been to a midnight release for a game system. That's actually surprising to me. That it's a very interesting experience to have that, especially if you have to wait in line for any period of time, like hours maybe. I've seen people camp out for days at times for some of these systems, and it's a fun experience, sure, because that entire time there's excitement kind of building around the idea of getting this new generation of system, and they're probably launching with some really cool game. I remember the Wii specifically was awesome because you got a new Zelda game right then and there, but the Wii was such an interesting concept for Nintendo, going home with this remote looking thing, having sort of the motion controls. It was this weird thing to kind of wrap your mind around at 1 a.m. when he got home with the thing. But it's something about those midnight releases, because it does bring people together who are obviously dedicated to the hobby, and then there's new hardware getting thrown in there. It's a lot of fun. If you have time, check out some of the videos people have of midnight releases, especially for the older system like the PS2 or the GameCube, somewhere in that generation, because it was certainly a different time. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Gabby's VP, says, thank you so much for meeting with us at Too Many Games. I can't believe y'all waited outside in the scorching heat just to meet your followers. Just goes to show what type of stand-up people the Spawncast are. Yeah, shout out to everyone who came out to Too Many Games. It was an awesome time and a great time this weekend. And I picked some stuff up. Maybe we'll do like a video where I show off some of the things that I got at the convention. Some GameCube stuff, yes. But they did this thing. So we had a signing and like autograph picture stuff. It was meet and greet, basically. It was a lot of fun. But they gave us the room for an hour, and so many of you came out that it was not equipped for that, the room itself and the time period they gave us in what was at least air conditioned. So we just went out to the parking lot and finished all the meet and greet stuff there, which was another like hour and a half. And yes, it was hot out and all that, but it was still a lot of fun. And I think next year we'll just tell them, hey, can you just give us enough time so that everyone can kind of come through it and meet up and stuff. Even though that means apparently 2 hours or something. So I'll let them know for next year, because I'll certainly be going out then. It was a lot of fun. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo's approach to the Switch 2 launch. Just make enough of them. A ton even. Maybe 5 or 6 million. Do you think they're going to be able to figure out the situation when it comes to some of these resellers, maybe next year when the system releases? And then also, what about Sega and Crazy Taxi? How do you feel about them approaching it as a massively multiplayer style game? And what'd you think about that Capcom Next, and especially with something like Dead Rising releasing here in just a couple of months? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.